is a brand strategist who has created her business around being passionately curious, and she has a lot of great insights and a big transformation going on in her business right now. So I'm super excited to welcome her here. Amber, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so, oh boy, where do I begin? Well, I've got about 14 years sales marketing experience. I always joke that I have a lifetime of experience in sales and marketing of some sort. Just from being a kid on in life, I always found a way to make money, and I was always curious, asking people questions, which has led me to where I am. So today, where I sit is a year and 3 months ago, I started Strategic Partners Marketing, which is a local ad agency serving small businesses. And over the last few months, I've been launching Amber Consulting, which is the side of my business focused on smaller businesses, entrepreneurs, startups, which I think I'm going to get more into that and talk about what's going on with the evolution of all that. But really what I do is help businesses understand who their audience is, what their best story is, and how to market and how to use different channels and tactics effectively based on what their goals are. So that's really what I do.
That's awesome.
And I like how, so that's how it ties into the all my rock and roll kind of flair.
And actually, like on the subject of like the whole rock and roll there, I know you've got like such an interesting backstory to like what your dreams are have been growing up and how they're coming out now. So I'd love if you could talk a little bit about your why, because you had so many interesting things to say earlier when we were talking about this.
Yeah. Okay. So I've always didn't necessarily know what business I could go into, how I would find myself in my own business. So, and I've also always loved rock and roll music and always knew I wanted to be a musician. So in college, I had started a sales job. I ended up working for 5 years as basically a telemarketer. So it wasn't really all that awesome. But I learned a lot with sales. And then, oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I just
muted. Did we get muted or are you there?
No, I just muted myself so I could type and keep going. You're doing fine.
I'll just keep talking. So, back in 2008, while I was doing that sales job, I started my first band, which is also how I met my husband. He had an ad in a local newspaper looking for a singer for a rock band, and I was looking for someone who played guitar and drums to start a rock band. So that's how that all finally began. I had a lifelong journey with music, but this was my first official band, and it was awesome. So that was started in 2008. Then I transitioned into taking a job at a TV station, and I worked for 5 years in online marketing with the TV station and TV sales, where I helped small businesses figure out what their TV ad campaigns could be. And it was awesome, and there were so many things that I loved about it, and the company was great, but I realized that if I stayed in the corporate world, really for whatever company it was, there were going to be limitations on what they could allow me for time off and flexibility. And I'm a hard worker and I love my work. I consider what I do just really as a part of my life. I don't really view job and personal life. It all just blends. But I realized that in order to take the band the direction that we've been moving for the last 7 years, and our biggest dream and goal is to travel and be on tour, I realized that I had to figure out a way to pursue my own business as an entrepreneur, because it just wasn't going to be realistic with 2 weeks vacation a year working for someone else, that if an opportunity came up to take a few week tour with our band, or to go for a last minute gig, or drive to the next state for a last minute opportunity to open for an awesome band, I needed to be more in control of my own schedule. And so that, coupled with all the things that I was seeing in business, and I was finding that more and more often I was helping advise clients on their marketing strategy outside of just what they were doing with TV. I could see that they needed to go back to some brand basics. They needed to start was developing a website before they spent huge amounts of outbound money on TV ads. So I could see the whole pieces of their marketing strategy and that they really needed help making sure that it all worked together. So the two whys that I have, or my personal why, is that I'm passionate about music and I want the opportunity to play with my band and be there when there's an opportunity to perform our music. So I needed to work for myself, be in control of my own schedule. And I wanted the freedom to do whatever is best and right for my clients and stay at the forefront of trends and what the leading opportunities are for them to engage with their audiences. And I knew that I could do that by having my own business because I'm not bound by a specific product to sell. What I sell to clients is the best strategy that works for them. So I'm truly their marketing partner rather than selling them a product.
I love that because it really has to come from service. And I really love how you've created this kind of way to break free of the mold, because really when it comes down to it, there, as you were saying, there's only a limited amount of things that you can do within a traditional job framework, because there's guidelines that have to be followed on a company level, and then guidelines that have to be followed for procedures and, you know, to keep everything uniform. So it's really interesting to see how you've been able to create that and to focus it around service. And I think that one of the best things about hearing your journey is knowing that you were able to pursue this dream, right, that is very personal, while at the same time pursuing a dream that is in service of a lot of other people. And how those two go hand in hand, instead of it being where you only have to do your side. I really like how you've created this life where, by serving yourself and by doing something that really benefits you, like, so creating your own business, creating something that allows you to be your full expressive self, both within your business and like when you have to tour, when you want to do other things as a musician. But at the same time, it really, by doing this, you're able to better serve other people. And I think that that's really powerful there.
Thank you. It does feel really good to finally be able to figure out a way where, like, I always knew that I had a lot to offer my clients and I always was coming from a place of heart. But when you work for other people or other companies, you do have to follow, you know, their rules and their mission. So this way I got to forge my own mission, which is to empower small businesses in their own marketing.
Yeah, that's huge. That's so powerful. And like, and I was kind of wondering, like, is there, I guess, like, when I hear you talk about your business, you talk a lot about like connecting with people. And I know that, like, as a musician, you also have to connect with people on a completely different way than you maybe would traditionally in a business. And like, how do you feel like that has like come into play? Like, do you feel like there's like a different energy maybe to your business, or like a different approach because of like you being able to step into like that other side of who you are?
Are you saying, is it different now that I work for myself versus working for someone else? Or
I guess like I'm not really sure how to. Yeah, yeah, I know. I'm kind of. I have this idea in my head that I'm not sure. Like, yeah. I guess more like when we talked before about connecting with clients and being able to be there. Like, I think that there's like such a strength in like your energy, because you do these things that are right for you, versus like if you were trying to fit yourself into a box and how that comes through. Yeah, so and we had talked before about defining happiness and accepting like what is your personal balance in life. And I guess I wonder too, because you've done such a great job at creating this business and a life that you love, and like was there a point of struggle where you were unsure about the choices you were making in terms of like stepping out of a more traditional job and like going into business?
Yeah, so there was never a point of self-doubt about if I wanted to do it, but it's definitely, depending on people's situations, it definitely was a crazy, insane, amazing roller coaster first year. It was a time of learning so much and really coming more into who I am and my strengths and confidence in myself and my abilities. So I think some of the biggest fears for some people, at least for me, I don't know if it was so much of a fear, but a challenge and not quite knowing how I would deal with it is when you establish and you work really hard and build up an income or a client base working for someone else or your benefits, and then making that decision to start your own business. And due to the nature of where I was working, I couldn't build my business while still staying there. It just wasn't going to work. So there was a point where it was, I left and I was on my own and there was no guarantee of an income. And, you know, I did the best I could with planning in advance, with
Yeah.
developing a vision about who I could help and why. I mean, it's never, I don't think it's ever really going to be perfect for someone until you take the leap, until you get into it and start doing it. You need to have a plan of some sort, but a lot of it figures itself out as you're doing it. And I had followed a lot of entrepreneurs and just life coaches. I would read blogs, watch videos, read books, follow whatever I could. And what I kept finding as a reoccurring piece of advice was that if you have that inner fire, that stirring, that something within you that tells you that you're meant for more or something different, that you will always be holding yourself back and never step into your true whole self and what you're capable of if you don't take that leap and do it. And I also heard a lot of people talk about how scary it is, and at first you might earn less money, but they find themselves being so much happier. And I can definitely relate to that experience of my first year, where starting your business, I have earned less, but I am in such a happier place and everything's moving in the right direction. And a lot of people talk about it takes a year or two, and I can totally see how far I've come in that year. There was a few month window, so I started the business, Strategic Partners Marketing, with the goal of serving small local businesses in an ad agency type role. So the model that I established was that I would bring a couple employees in house, but a lot of the positions I would work with subcontractors like photographer, videographer, graphic designers, people who it didn't necessarily make sense to bring them in house full time. And that model has worked really well because it allows me to serve those small business clients who have a budget and have enough going on with their marketing where they need someone in a role like what I offer to help guide them, but providing it in a model that they can afford. So my first couple months, things are going decent. I had a few clients. My first week in business, I had 2 clients that had followed me, who had known me for a few years through my time in TV. So that was awesome that they trusted me. We still work together to this day, so that feels great. There was a window in there where there was a business partnership for about 4 months. And you and I had talked earlier about how sometimes we question our own abilities or our confidence, or it was something that I thought I needed or would be beneficial to the business. And it turned out that it wasn't the best direction to go. It was short-lived at about 4 to 5 months. And it impacted me in a huge way and the business in a huge way. And then I was able to buy the business back out, and then it was back in my name and my control. And, you know, for some people, partnerships work out and some people they don't. But what I learned from it is that I need to trust my gut. I need to trust my heart. And the work that I'm doing is based on a foundation of experience and proven success with clients. So all the pieces are there to have a successful business. And I realized that I don't need to question myself. I've been forging the way that I do things, a lot of it in my own way, based on what I believe is right or what I see as the path forward that will do the best work for clients. And I realized that I don't have to do things the way that other people have done them, and that this is panning out pretty well because I'm meeting more and more people and I'm getting more referrals. And I've had several clients now who've been with me for a year and they're referring me to other business friends of theirs. And so where I'm going with that is that if you know that your heart's in the right place, you want to do what's best for clients, and you've also got the skills and you've got some proven success with clients. Sometimes everything won't be a success, but we learn, we evaluate, we figure out, we look at the reasons why something might not have gone as planned. That I just encourage others to maintain that confidence in themselves, and it's just a continual process. Yeah, it's a continual process. I'm always looking to grow and continue learning and do what's right for the clients.
I love that you talk about taking those leaps and how you've gone through this process of taking different actions. Like when you mentioned working with kind of like independent contractors that did like video and did different specific things, as a way to like to deal with like different budgets that clients might have. But also I think it's so important to honor the fact that unless you go out there and try working with these people, like you would have never found that balance. And it actually works out to be really great for you because it underscores that freedom that you have in your business and that you don't have to like always be managing this team then, and the limitations that brings in. So that's I find that really interesting because like for me going into business, like one of my things is I am a very independent person as well, and sometimes being very independent, you kind of worry about like where might you end up trapped up, and like do I want to manage a team or no I don't, and and then there's that whole internal struggle. But I love that you can clearly do your business however fits for you and how you've really taken that on, and you're really proof of that. Like just do your business however it works for you. Okay, so and I also wanted to ask you about like you've got this mindset where you're so curious and you're so driven by connections with people, and I'd just like to hear a little more of like how that came out while you were growing up, and like maybe what that journey was like for you in the beginning.
Yeah, my family called me Curious George. I have some, to this day, I hear stories from aunts and uncles, and some of them are like, well, you were so precocious. I don't think they use that word. I think they use, well, you always asked a lot of questions and you were annoying. But it was cute. Some of them embraced it, and some of them, I think, I don't know if they felt threatened, but it was just who I was, because I remember being 3 and 4 and 5 years old, and from early on being able to talk and ask questions. It never sat right with me when someone gave me an opinion as if it were fact, and then I wanted to know why something was the way it was. Just sometimes a statement that was made, I mean, whether it was somewhat sexist, probably at times, the roles around what women do and what men do. And a lot of children, you don't know barriers or boundaries. Why can't I play with this toy? Why can't I do this or that? And I just always pushed because there was just something in me from being the time that I was a child that I wanted to understand. And it wasn't from a place of wanting to argue or that I felt my viewpoint was right. It was that I really wanted to understand different people's perceptions or ideas about why something was the way it was so that I could come to my own conclusion. So that was interesting growing up with the family, with our family. And my mom always said with her generation that kids were kind of meant to be seen and not heard, and you didn't really speak up with your parents, and you didn't question them if they told you something that was the way it was, and you weren't allowed to ask why. That was just completely unnatural for me, and so I just went for it, and I often asked questions. And I think there's a way to go about it where you can show interest in I really wanted to understand why people were the way they were. And I wanted to understand why my parents were the way they were, and understand what experiences they had lived through see what might have hardened them on certain aspects of their life, to understand that there was a reason for a lot of the way and the reason for why things were the way that they were. And I think curiosity is just, it's positive. It's what keeps me inspired every single day. I want to know how to do things better and different. And it's just what fuels me and keeps me energized every day.
Yeah, and you kind of have to have that spirit going into a business, because especially up front, there's so much that you have to be willing to learn, and so much that you have to be willing to experiment with. And something that I was thinking about today as I was getting ready to do this is that for me especially, I've had to become more open with having the possibility of being wrong. And I think that outside of entrepreneurship and in like certain environments outside of there isn't really that chance to like try and explore. And that if you do question people, or when you do put yourself in a situation where you could be wrong, a lot of times that's looked at as like something risky or something unacceptable or something that's not socially okay. So I really love how you've just continually brought that in your life. And especially too, like I really like how you're going through this process of a rebrand. And I'm curious, so with could you tell us a little more about your journey in being in a band, and like what that's like, and maybe like when it started for you too?
Yeah, so to answer the first part about the rebrand, so what's really happening, so Strategic Partners Marketing, I call that SPM, is a local ad agency that's really built on face-to-face relationships here in Madison, Wisconsin, our local market. Most of my clients are within 30 miles. And what I found more and more was that I was getting connected to startups and entrepreneurs, and I'm really engaged and active online. And I wanted to reach out and take everything that I've learned in my one-to-one consulting with businesses and be able to offer this in a format where I can help a lot of entrepreneurs at once and make it more accessible for them. As I was getting referrals to entrepreneurs, it can be difficult for them to engage in one-to-one consulting. They're operating it with a different kind of budget than an established company is with 30 and 40 employees. So SPM continues to be an ad agency here locally. And I just launched Amber Consulting, which is me stepping into who I am personally, because when clients come to work with me on their consulting, they are hiring me. If you're hiring me as a consultant, it's because we have some sort of connection that we establish. And who I am, I'm a musician. I think that life can be positive and fun, and I want to help other businesses tell their best story, whether they're branding themselves personally or their company or their product. I help them understand that, get to the root of what their story is and how they should be marketing. So that business that I just launched, I have been taking everything that I've worked with businesses on for years and created an online program. Right now I'm I'm taking down names and emails for some businesses to be my beta launch group. And I'm hoping to launch the first class starting late July. And it will become a model where people can enroll for a 30 days to a rockin' brand strategy to help specifically small businesses and entrepreneurs who need to answer who they are, who their customer is, really get a handle on that. What are the marketing channels to reach that audience, and how do they use those channels, including if they are working with no budget. So I'll be educating them on how do they do marketing through some free channels. So it's been a fun evolution, and I'm stepping into more of who I am personally with my consulting business.
I was looking at like somewhere, I don't know if it was your Facebook page or somewhere where you're bringing in like new brand colors and things like that too, and I think it's so fun. It's like super like bright and uplifting, and I think there's such a like great energy in that when you're like really infused like who it is that you are, and you're picking things out that just really vibe with you. And like I think that really carries through, and it's something that can be kind of scary. Like for me, that was probably like the scariest part of putting myself out in business. So it's
Right.
really amazing to see people doing that and like being like the proof that it works and that it creates something beautiful. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's see. There's something else that we've talked
Maybe
about. Yeah.
my mother. At one point we talked about.
Yeah, we were gonna talk about your mom's story because that was actually how I really connected with you on like a deeper level. Was I was looking at the first business that you started, which is it's
SPM, Strategic Partners Marketing. Yep.
yeah, and everything is more like in a traditional business format, and it's like traditional business type colors, and like it's welcoming and kind of like reserved almost compared. Yeah, like so kind of. I mean, compared to like what you're doing now, it's definitely because now you're coming out with like all your energy. So compared to that, and like when I first saw it, I was like, I don't know, let's see. And when I found your blog and you were talking about this like really beautiful story, and you were being so like you're just putting yourself out there in such a strong like connecting way. I don't know how to describe, but it's just like one of those things where when you are really truly yourself and you show up and you tell stories that really matter to you in a way that really matters to you, like it just really draws people in. And when I read that story, I really like I knew like she has something, and I know that there's like this connection that she creates. I know that it's her. This is the direction her mind pulls her and like pushes her to be or passionately curious. And so when you were talking about when we were talking and then your whole rebrand came up, I thought that was so amazing because it's like I could see that like from shining from the inside of your business out, and now you've got that shining on the outside, shining through the inside. So it's like all just coming together. But I'd love if you could share that story about how your mother's story and her own journey in business inspired you to create your own business.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for reading that and seeing that evolution that's kind of been happening. So my mom has cleaned houses forever. She loves it. She's passionate about it. She's passionate about helping people. And what I wrote about it was in my blog post about the best business lesson learned from mom was growing up. What was difficult for me is that I saw that she was such a heart-centered, giving person. But what was difficult to see was people that were, there were some families that she cleaned for, and they were like family to her. And there were others who I think they just viewed her as some hired help, which would be fine, but they also didn't pay her well, and they also didn't really even give her the respect sometimes of she'd maybe be accidentally locked out of the house, which happens, but they wouldn't pay her for her time having driven out there, or they wouldn't, greet her when she was there at their house. And it's been a lifetime of conversation with my mom and really want to understand where she's coming from and who she is. And in more recent years, she's been working with more seniors, and that just makes her feel so wonderful because for her, it's about connecting with them as people and cleaning their home and helping them sort out their medications or pay their bills, whatever they need help with. And what I learned from her is that the number one most important thing is whatever you're doing in business, you truly love it and are passionate about it. For her, it's not about the money. She feels so rich in the connections she has with people. And me being my heart side and my business brain, I still struggle with, wanting to encourage her to do work she loves and still get paid fairly, and it's fine. I know she could charge more, but I'm happy for her that she came to a place where she finally let some customers go who didn't really treat her with the most respect, and she consciously chooses to help more of the seniors who she helps who are living on limited budgets, and she is so fulfilled. She tells me every day she is so lucky to get up and go to a job that she loves. She looks forward to it. And I just think that So it'd be so wonderful if everybody had an example of that they could see.
Yeah.
It's such a more beautiful thing to be able to see than, be surrounded by people who are miserable and complaining and can't stand their job and can't stand their boss. And so that's where I say the most important business lesson that I learned from her is that if you choose to help someone or meet them where they are in business, it needs to come from a place of heart and that you care about them and that that they're providing you some other value. It can't come from a place of self-doubt or not thinking that you're worth it. If you choose to help someone because that feels right in your heart, then that's something that you're meant to be doing. And I just watch her and she loves what she does every day. When my brother was born, she had a C-section and left the hospital within a day. And the second day she returned to work. 2 days later, after having a surgery, having a newborn, and she just took him with her because she loved what she did. So it's a good inspiration.
That's so true, and it's so rare. Like outside of entrepreneurship, it's so rare for people to be able to have that opportunity to do what they love. And so, like when you were saying, like you feel like people need that to see that example more. I think that's so true because even when people hear about entrepreneurs doing things in their business and doing things that they love, there's a lot of skepticism because people are not used to seeing like that degree of like motivation and that degree of like happiness and fulfillment. So like people will be like, oh, get a real, like, like on Freedom Hackers, like I'll see people that are posting and they're like, oh, I got told again that I should get a real job, or I just told so-and-so that I'm making 6 figures in my business, and they said, oh great, that'll look awesome on a resume. And it's like, no, you're missing the point. It's possible. Like this is possible.
It's awesome on a resume to myself. Like that's funny.
Yeah, it's, I mean, and even like it's something like I personally come across that where I'll talk to neighbors and they'll be like, oh, so what is it that you do? And like back then was when I was really growing my freelance tutoring business, and I said, well, I'm a freelance tutor, that's what I do. So I was getting paid the same that I would be working, like doing a part-time job, working way more hours, but working instead I got to be home with my kids, and I got to like be at home and like and just do whatever else I needed to do or wanted to do. And like their response was like, oh, okay, but like, do you have a job? That is my job. My business is my job. And so it's been this journey too of like just really finding like, and it's like a journey of finding who it is that I am and becoming more of that. So I read something recently that was talking about how being an entrepreneur is the best personal development that there could be, because you're always having to become more of yourself, and you're always having to kind of evolve on a different level. And like for me, like as I've been doing like this series, and as I've been blogging, and as I've been connecting with people and as I grew my tutoring business, I realized that what I actually do really well is coaching with people and like working with people, and like where I create transformational results, not just like, oh, check these boxes and get this paper done and get this finished. Where I actually create like what are my transformational results is really connecting with people. And so I really love that you're talking about having like this example and like finding different people. Like for you, it was your mom, and for other people, they might look at different like people in business that they see around them. But there's such a need to just have like that point of proof of like, yes, it's possible to do something you love. Yes, it's possible to do something that gives you freedom. And so I really love that aspect of your business.
Thank you. Well, and to go along with that, I think the important thing is for people to look at their life and answer to themselves, what is it that they want out of their life? And then create the path that gets that. And for everyone, it's different. Some people want more freedom. Some want higher earnings with freedom. Some want more flexibility. And you have the power to create whatever that looks like for you. And that's, a big lesson for me to have learned, that different people have different definitions of happiness. And what matters is that whatever that definition, that they're able to pursue that and make that happen for themselves. And it doesn't matter what other people think that happiness should be. It matters, what it is for them. The same as that there are so many jobs that we need people to be in, and there are great opportunities within the corporate world, and that's not something I look down upon. I just know that it was not the right path for me, and that's my message, to other entrepreneurs or those who they know that path is calling them, and even friends of mine who I support whatever it is that makes them happy. But if they find themselves on a career path or within a job, or if they work for a boss where every day it's agonizing and they can't stand the thought of doing that line of work, or they can't stand the thought of going to that place, then they need to look at figuring out what path is going to lead to happiness for themselves.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah.
Key.
Yeah, definitely. And as you were saying, like, it's not about everybody has to become an entrepreneur. I mean, if it's something that pulls you in that direction, then go with it. But I think that the key is just like, what is it that you would be willing to do every single day and be very excited and lit up, and what is it that fills your personal needs out of your life? Because I think a lot of people will look at, oh, I'm going to work for this set amount of time, and then maybe I'll take a vacation away from everything. And it's like, no, like, what kind of way is that to live? And it's not really necessary. And I keep coming back to this book that I'm reading. It's called The Icarus Deception, and the author talks about how, I think it's Seth Godin, talks about how there's all these outmoded beliefs that we have in our society that come from when we had to be go through the process of becoming industrialized, and where everything had to kind of be on a like mass scale. And so the way to get ahead was to become more productive, and now it's more the opposite, that we have as much productivity as we need, and now the way to become successful and to get ahead or to create more income is to be more creative, is to be more experimental, is to step into whatever it is. And so, like, as you were saying, like, there's some people that comes within a traditional job setting. Like, for example, my sister is very happy working in a traditional job setting, and she loves the structure, and she loves having that routine, and she works in a hospital and is just really fulfilled by the things that she does and the way that she's able to help people. And that's like where her passion comes from. That's where, like, that's what fits her life. And it's different for me, where like when I have had to work in a very structured environment, I've been able to do, like, to check all the boxes and get things done, but at the end of the day it was just draining, and that's just kind of what you have to look at, what gives you energy.
That's funny you say that about the draining part, because lately, especially the last few weeks, I just feel like, because I'm on fire with trying to launch my online program, I just can't stop going, and I can't turn it off, but it's from a very positive place, which feels awesome. I'm taking a few days off next week, which will be good.
Yeah.
But I'm going to read. Maybe I'll read that book you mentioned. But that's just so, you can sometimes see that change in yourself, going and working from a place of stress and not feeling great, versus when you're super motivated and passionate about something and you just can't turn it off because it feels great and it feels really good to work from a place of that.
Yeah, I love that. And it's one of my favorite things about being an entrepreneur, because like I'm sort of a person that tends towards being like a workaholic, because I'm very like aimed towards high achieving, and I really like to get things done. Like I like to feel like I'm making an impact. And so like for me, like when I'm able to like tap into that in whatever direction that goes, and wherever that ends up taking me, being able to just go with that, and like knowing that I like created this energy. And then like I look back and I'm like, look at all these things that I've created because I am in like a really high energy state, because I'm doing the things that I like to do, versus how little I was able to get done, or like how little I was able to motivate myself. And yeah, it was just enough, like what I needed to do, and a little beyond that, right? But it's like such a whole new level when you're doing work that like comes from like your biggest strength and your passion.
Yes, absolutely.
And on that note, I would love if you could tell us a little more about like where to find you in your new business and everything, so people can work with you, because I think it makes such a huge difference to work with people that are so passionate about their work, and I can tell that you have this passion. So yeah, so where can we find you?
So my website for my agency is strategiesthatpay.com. But what I think would be a better fit is when I get amberdella.com launched, which will hopefully be in a couple of weeks. It's being designed. So through Facebook, if you connect with me there, Amber Della Consulting, if you look that up on Facebook, Twitter, or if you go to my current website, strategiesthatpay.com. But what I'm doing now is collecting information from small businesses, entrepreneurs who need some help with their brand strategy and who might like to be notified when I launch the program. I'm starting with a beta test group, and then my goal is to work with about 10 students to provide value to them through the course and get their feedback on how I can make it better for other students moving forward. So Facebook would probably be the best way to just message me there if you're interested. And awesome. The website will be launched around July 10th, which is amberdella.com.
I'll put all the links to your social media on the post. So after this video, make sure that within a week or so, come back to curiositywings.com and check that out. I'll have all of Amber's social media, so you can keep up to date with that. And thank you, Amber, for doing this, because I think that it's so necessary to share these stories, and it's so important to just kind of really come from this place of passion. But to be able to do that, I think we really need proof that it's possible. And I think that you are like a perfect example of that. You can go in whatever direction that is. And for you, like, I clearly see that connections with people are like where your curiosity is and where your strength is. And so other people that are watching this, that want to create business and to create their life in a way that suits them best, like, it's so empowering to see you doing this. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, awesome. And then we don't have any questions, so I think that's a perfect place to sign off. So thanks, and again, I'll have that all updated, curiositywings.com. Also sign up for the email list so that I can keep you guys updated. Bye.